Welcome to Making MarTech, where we spotlight innovative MarTech companies and leaders who are driving growth, highlighting valuable insights and actionable strategies to stay ahead in this industry. Today, we're here with Tasha Day, Vice President of Media Strategy and Planning at Experis Media. Hey Tasha, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's awesome to have you on. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Tasha Day. I am the VP of Media Strategy and Planning at Experis Media.
And what do you do there?
I lead the strategy and planning department here. So, a group of very fine media experts that plan, buy, and report media campaigns for our clients who are often heads of marketing or in marketing department team members. And we work directly with them to help drive their business growth.
And what's your role in all of this?
So I oversee the strategy and planning department and make sure that the output of the team is strategically guided and that it is based on the client's goals and that we're driving innovation and new thinking in our media plans. That means we're bringing in new sources of data and tech and out of the box ideas so that we can help our clients stand out with consumers and really make the most of their investments. We want to make sure that the service and the outputs that we're providing to clients are really working to help them reach their business goals.
Gotcha. And you say that you rely a lot on data and analytics.
We do. Involves, a constant review of what new data and tech capabilities are in the marketplace and how we can optimize what we're currently doing to be more accurate. And the truth is that with the evolution of data and even though AI has been a point of use in media for a long time, it is helping evolve the data and measurement capabilities that we're using every day.
How's that?
Because for one example, not only are we able to hone in on targeting that allows us to consolidate and unify targeting across walled gardens, which is something that we were not capable of doing before, but the evolution of tech and data capabilities in the industry now means that we can go beyond the walls of Facebook and beyond the walls of YouTube so that we can run the same targeting across all of those platforms. And it also means that measurement is also more real time because from real time marketplace signals are feeding into measurement platforms that we're using market mix modeling now that is more real time and nimble to not only inform how to plan for media, but also is reporting against revenue and ROI outputs much more accurately and sooner. And historically, it might take 1 to 2 years for a measurement platform to report against how a campaign delivered against ROI and revenue. And that is not the case anymore. We can do it, much more real time now so that we can optimize based on that data as we're activating the campaign.
And you guys talk about having these three core beliefs, right? You say overspending doesn't work, everything is media, and accountability for every dollar, right? Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, Xver's philosophy is all media is performance media, and this is based on a bit of a double click where not only many brands or businesses are siloed, but the historical thinking that you've got your brand marketing support, which is all about the fluffy, feel good, the commercials and all of that. And then the performance media, which is about driving sales immediately, like on retailer sites or search, which captures intent and drives somebody directly to a point of sale online. And our thought on it is that, look, you can't separate the two because they have their roles and they actually multiply the impact of each other. And so every media touch point is providing value in terms of driving those business goals for sales growth. It just looks a little different, and each touch point has a different role and a different intersection with consumers and how they're influenced, but it's all working towards performing and driving those sales growth. goals. That's what that means is you really need all of it because each touch point has its own role in the mix. It's kind of like when you think about a play and how you have all the different characters in a play. Nobody's playing the same character. They all have a different role and a different part of the story, but they're contributing to that greater story. And that's how I like to think of our philosophy on It's All Performance Media is that there's just different parts of a plan that's driving one big story.
And do you think that's where a lot of businesses end up going wrong? Is because they have this misconception that they're these two separate parts.
Absolutely. It's been such a challenge trying to rescope or re-guide the thinking with clients on that. Because the problem is that if you're not using both to multiply each other, like you're missing out on something. Something's at risk. And whether that's brand visibility and recognition, which then ultimately undercuts a business's ability to drive sales growth. It it is really imperative because the first default is they think, "Oh, well, if I just keep my Google on and I just keep my, lower funnel Amazon or try drive traffic to my website, that it's gonna be enough." But in our competitive marketplace and with consumer attention being what it is not enough. It is not enough. You have to mean something, you have to be more, you have to be creative and stand out because it's not a consumer's job to remember a brand. It's a brand's responsibility to make sure that they don't have a chance to forget you. And I'm quoting a Salesforce executive who said that because I believe in that quote. Brands need to assume that responsibility. They have to stay top of mind to consumers. It's not a consumer's job to remember them. It's the other way around.
That's really well put. And moving from that into what you guys are doing, what have your biggest recent success has been?
Yeah, we've seen some really great success with clients based on driving this whole philosophy of together is better, and that we need to look at all media touch points as driving towards the end sales goal because a a robust marketing budget or when you do it right, it does allow for the use of tools and analytics to get to, as I mentioned before with the MMM, data-based results that guide the choices in media planning. And we use some of this tech like an MMM platform that has really, really validated this whole approach to making sure that we're connecting the top and the bottom of the consumer journey. And for example, we had we a CPG client that we worked, that's consumer packaged goods client. They were in the pet food space and we helped them launch a brand new brand campaign and planned everything all together from CTV, search, regular TV or linear TV is what we call it, all the way down to timing that with their store promos and all of their e-com efforts on Amazon and on all of the pet sites. And all of that ran together
Mhm.
for about 3 to 4 months where it was all in sync. And the tools that we use to validate the impact showed an 83% incrementality in revenue during that time frame when all of the channels were working together. And so when you think about the impact of advertising, had they not had all that advertising on and working together, now that's an 83% increase in sales that they wouldn't have seen. So this just gets me totally jazzed about the work that I do every day because I can see that it really does make a difference. And it reinforces my belief that media and advertising really does influence people. And when it's done right, then it also drives business growth for our clients. So I know it works. And that is what, to me, that's a success is doing something that actually makes a difference and helps our clients.
Yeah, no, that's really great. One of the things I like to say is there's two sides to every coin, right? And in talking about these successes, on the flip side of that coin, we're also going to have some challenges. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have been facing recently?
Yeah. So you did kind of hit on it before about the challenge of trying to convince clients to see the bigger picture and invest in marketing accordingly. Because one of the biggest challenges is honestly underfunding in marketing, where many of clients that we work with, they're a little shy about investing and they say, okay, here, we'll give you a little bit and we'll test it out and see if it works. We'll give you $300,000 and we'll see if this can increase our sales by 25%. And it's often mismatched the investment to the goal. And that in itself is a big challenge because of how much exposure it really does take to influence people. So the tendency is in many businesses is that marketing budgets tend to be the first to go when there's hard times or if they're just shy of investing. And so we often will see a client will say, okay, well, I'm going to go dark. And they stop their advertising. And this is a huge miss. And often like the impact isn't seen right away, but there is a longer term impact that is usually devastating. Case in point is that we have a client in a very competitive CPG category, and they're in a category that became increasingly competitive with more entrants, more Amazon based brands, and with the popularity of products in the category, it just blew up. And our client decided that after a really strong sales month that they were going to go dark for 6 months.
Mhm.
And this turned out to have devastating impact to their business. When I say dark, that means they turned off all of their media advertising. And against our recommendation, which we said, you need to keep up with this. Like you can't go dark because it's much harder to restart after you've lost relevance. Unfortunately, the brand saw a 9% decrease in sales in their peak season of sales. 9%. And all of our third party measurement studies verified that their awareness, recall of the brand, and consideration and purchase were down significantly year over year. And so, between sales loss and the fact that these other metrics, consideration and ad recall, tells us that they simply lost relevance because they weren't investing in making sure that the consumer did not forget them. And the impact we've been as a result, followed up with a strategic recommendation to attempt to fix the sales downside with, an always on strategy that was accompanied by big brand moments. And we've been hustling for a year to try to close that gap. And I will say that media did its job in closing the original gap, but then they lost distribution at a key retailer as a result of all of that too. And then that caused its own double-digit sales growth. So you can see how making a decision to turn off advertising started this whole downslide of impact to their business. And it's so much harder to crawl out of that hole. Clients who don't know that and they're just thinking in the short term, they base their budgets off of, hey, I just want to do a test. So it's insufficient budgets or it ends up being cut back just to satisfy short-term sales numbers without thinking about the longer-term implication. And it really is devastating.
Do you think that the main issue is the fact that you have clients right now dropping off, going dark because they want to cut back their marketing budgets? Or do you find that it's typically a bigger problem trying to get these clients in the first place?
Well, we specialize in growth stage brands as well, which means in many cases brands who we may be their first media agency because they're a newer brand and they've decided that in order to grow out of like launch phase, they know that they need something more. And they come to us and say, we know in order to get to the next level, we need to advertise. But the major problem is this is like, so we know that they want to and they know that they need to. It's just getting sign off from a board of directors or from the powers that be on how much to invest. And that's where we come in is we try to consult and guide them into this is the right investment, or you need to at least invest this much in order to make an impact or in order to reach your goals. And a lot of times they're nervous or they have to really go in and they have to get buy-in from investors to fund the advertising because it's a question mark to them. Like, is this going to work? Am I going to see a return on my investment? We talk a lot about this internally about how we think of advertising as a 401k. where you invest for the long term. You don't invest a 401k expecting to see 100% return and cash it out the next day, right? It is over time after investing that your investment returns and grows and provides growth stability too. You should see stabilized growth over time. And that's really what marketing and advertising does too. But the expectation is, hey, if I invest $500,000 now, I want to see a $2.5 million return next week. Is that realistic? It's not. And the reason why it's not is because of people. People are people and they're complicated and they buy things and are influenced on really on their own time. And we just have to do our best to try to connect with them to influence them. But, you can't force anyone to buy anything. So, yeah.
And that's where the biggest gap is, in your opinion, is you guys are able to find these people. And then when it comes to the actual investment, that's where it kind of drops off the most. Because
Well, yeah, it is definitely one of the bigger problems is that many of our clients tend to tiptoe into it where they may start with underfunded marketing budgets and unrealistic expectations of goals and it's mismatched. And that's part of our challenge is to try to make the most of the investment. But the truth of it is that just like with that 401k is the more you invest, the more your investment grows. And so it's also like you get what you pay for, which is true. If you invest in high quality clothes and makeup and stuff like that, you're getting back a higher quality product. And I do believe that about marketing and advertising too, that especially at the beginning stages is you get what you pay for. You're willing to put in only $300,000. Oh, you're going to get what you pay for out of that. And it's often mismatched with their goals.
yeah, no, I get that. While we're kind of on that topic of what you guys do in the next 6 to 12 months, you guys have any new innovations you're coming out with? Anything you're making? Anything new that you're planning to come out with?
Yeah, we do. Some proprietary tech that's being developed in-house, AI based, of course, but will essentially merge a whole bunch of different tools that media companies use into one platform. So it would merge like the combination of consumer insights and media mix modeling
Mhm.
and sales reporting and all of that into one platform that is completely AI based. So that's in the works. We know we need something nimble and something that's based on like real time sales data feeds. And so that's what we're working on now.
All right, that's awesome. And I like to end off every episode with getting off serious stuff and go back to you personally, right? And that's what is the most overrated piece of advice you've encountered recently?
Oh,
Yeah, I know
um,
this one catches people out of left field sometimes.
yeah. The most overrated piece of advice. I don't know. I feel like, we recently had a conversation where we were working with a client and the feedback is, hey, like if we could have just gotten into a room, we could have solved this problem in 30 minutes. And I I disagreed with that feedback because just like you get what you pay for, I think that also applies when it comes to time, that big problems require more significant or big time to be put in order to come up with effective solutions. And I just I think in our day and age when attention span is so low, and everyone is moving so fast, we just don't give credit to, actually investing time into the work we do and weighting that with the output. Like anything you get out what you put in, and I also believe that that applies to time too. So in this case, no, it couldn't have been resolved well in 30 minutes because we needed much longer than that in order to do a job well done. So that's what's coming to mind for me right now.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's some great insight. So, I mean, with that, thanks, Tasha. Thanks for coming on. You shared a lot of unique insights today. I learned a lot personally, right? So, thanks for coming on.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. As we end today's episode of Making MarTech, we'd like to thank all our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share this and subscribe to our show so you don't miss the next one. I'm your host, Himnish Jindal. and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.